If I were to install a pool, what pump would you recommend for me?
Well, just like the bore and well pump I talk about in other videos, Lowrance also make a swimming pool pump. In this particular case, we've got a swimming pool pump here. It looks like a traditional swimming pool pump. It's got a filter basket here and a cap and a lid. Inside here is a DC to AC motor. So it's actually an AC motor, but it runs directly off this DC to AC converter. So all we have to do is connect some solar panels onto here, directly onto the roof. You can have 1 panel, 2 panels, 3 panels, 4 panels, 6 panels, depending on how much water you want to move per day and what time of the year it is that you want to filter. And then this device here converts that DC power into what's called variable 3-phase AC. Sounds very technical, I know, but basically it means we can control the speed of this pump depending on how much sunshine there is. So the pump gets faster and slower with the sun coming over and the clouds passing in front of the sun. So normally when you run a pool pump, you've got to pay the electricity company for the energy you borrow to run the pump. And most pool makers recommend you run the pump for about 8 hours a day through summer and maybe a couple of hours per day through winter. If you add that up, that can cost more than $1,000 per year to run a traditional swimming pool pump. If you add that over 10 years or 20 years, at $1,000 per year, over 10 years, that's $10,000. So if you buy a cheap pump for, say, $700 from Bunnings, for example, a $700 swimming pool pump over 10 years really costs you $10,700 to own. So when we look at things at Avio, we think about the total cost of ownership. We don't just think about the cost of the appliance, we think how much it's going to cost to own it really over the period of its life. These pumps are designed and made in Germany originally, but then they moved the factory to China, like many factories do get moved, but the German engineers still run the factory and they get the pumps made there. So this motor here is running from power from here, and this gets its power directly from the sun, so there's no connection to the grid at all. You can buy a power supply to feed this pump if you want to run pumps at night time. For example, you might have a party going and you might want to keep filtering into the Nile Rail water feature. You can have a power supply running this controller from the power point for the occasional bit of use if you want to use grid power. So if you take the running cost of this pump, you've got the total cost of the pump, which not being $1,000, but maybe not being $700 for a cheap pump, but maybe being $4,000 for the whole kit. But then you look at the running cost over 10 years being zero. $4,000 plus a few solar panels is far less than $10,700 if you buy a cheap pump. So it makes much more sense to make a good decision when you're choosing a pump to think about the running cost well above the cost of the pump itself. Additionally, this pump can be accessed by your smartphone, so you can see how much water you move per day. In this particular case, we've got a few different pumps in the series. This particular pump that you can see here is the PS600, and it can push water 4, 6 or 8 metres upwards, which is a long way up, because normally when you're pumping pool water, you're just pumping from the pump across to the pool. And we can pump 115,000 litres per day, 89,000 litres per day or 66,000 litres per day if you're pushing it 8 metres up. This is sometimes a good reference also because when you put water through a pool filter, you actually lose water flow because there's back pressure from the sand. So the reality is pushing water up 8 metres is similar to pushing water through a sand filter. So here we can put 66,000 litres of water through the pump per day, which is bigger than the average swimming pool. So one of these PS600s is okay for most small to medium pools. If you have a really large pool, we have a PS1800, which can put through 200,000 litres per day of water very easily off solar panels. So the second decision we make is how many solar panels you want. The more solar panels you have, the more water you can move per day. If you move more water per day, then your water gets clearer. So you might have, say, 2 panels on the northeast roof and 2 panels on the west roof of your house, and you might end up having pumping from, say, 7 AM in the morning until 7 PM at night in summer. And in winter time it might only pump for 4 or 5 hours, but it doesn't matter because you don't need to filter much in winter because there's not much algae growth and people don't generally use the pools in the middle of winter. You can also use these pumps to run the solar hot water system. So if you have those black pipes on your roof to heat the water up, you can use another pump for that, and it can run through the day using solar panels as well. You might not need as many panels for that because you're not having to push through a sand filter. You're just pushing water up to the roof and back down again. So definitely go with a PS600, the smaller pump, and you probably only need 1 panel to make it work. And generally you don't need to run it at night time because there's no solar heating then. So that's it for swimming pool pumps. Simplest way to filter a swimming pool is using a Lorentz water pump and a controller and a set of solar panels.